We are back for another edition of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, I am Jason Foy, as always, joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. here to break down UFC Des Moines, which goes down here on Saturday from Des Moines, Iowa. A long time since UFC has gone to Iowa. Of course, this comes off the heels of UFC Kansas City last week, where 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗀 gets a decision victory against Carlos Pradas. Talk about that briefly here in a moment. Pete, how's it going, man?
What's going on, Jason? What's up, everybody? Part of the Fight HQ community. Last week was an exciting week. Some exciting matchups and fights went how we projected them to go for the most part. But we have an interesting card this week with UFC Des Moines. So I'm interested to see if you agree with me on some of these fights, if you agree with some of the betting lines, and excited to talk some fights with you, buddy.
And, of course, this is our new starting time here on Monday nights. So pretty much from going forward, we'll be here on Monday nights. There may be a week or here or there, maybe where something happens with myself or maybe something happens with Pete that we don't do a Monday night. But our plan is to be here on Monday nights. So it gives you throughout the week to be able to check out the podcast, getting ready for Saturday's UFC event. And one of the things that Pete has been working on for several weeks now is the algorithm, and the algorithm really coming through here for you here. And also there's now going to be a way for people to have access to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to first start off the podcast by saying algorithm 100 times. I'm excited to be here and to provide some of the data to our listeners and to the hardcore DFS players out there. So what I've done is I've created a Patreon, which will be linked in the description below, in addition to me putting it in the chat, in the live chat. And you will have access to my projections for that DFS card for that fight night. And then in addition to that, I'm going to have the strength of schedule and the strength of each fighter's wins as well. So you can see who's had padded records. You can see who's had a tough road, inside the UFC, tough sledding with the competition that they've faced. And you can use, the performance scores, the projections, and the strength of schedules to really help you build your DFS lineups and see all right, well, maybe I'm a little underweight to this guy. I should boost him within my lineups, especially when you combine what I'm going to have for you guys in addition to Stochastic, all their crazy tools. It just goes to show you what I'm looking at when I'm breaking down the fights. This is what I use, and it's been helping me a lot. So it only had one loss last week, and I think it's like 4 weeks in a row I've had less than 3 losses. So I'm feeling really confident with this tool. It's definitely something that I've come up with that I'm proud of, but it's a little bit of a different type of projection, because you're going to notice that the losing fighters a part of lineups will have higher scores than most DFS websites out there. But if you look at it from like a performance score, it can kind of tell you all right, well, this fight's going to be very competitive, or this could be a complete blowout. So if you are interested, it's going to be in the description below. It's just $9.99 a month. You can cancel anytime. If you hate it, let me know. Let me know how I can fix it. If you love it, please tell other people about it. And I know that there are some hardcore people out there that want to have more data, at hand to help them win some money. And I'm hoping that this can help you guys.
Yeah, when you talk about what we saw last week at UFC Kansas City, we had 6 fighters who got over 100 points on DraftKings. That being Randy Brown, Malcolm Wellmaker, 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗀, Jocelyn Edwards, Zhang Ming Yang, and also Aliskarov and Ming Yang both getting 120 points. One of the things that we talked about last week here on the show was about that main event, and I think we learned a lot about not just 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗀 with it being able to implement his wrestling and grappling, but last week we sat here on the show and we said, can Carlos Pradas go 25 minutes? He proved he can go 25 minutes, even though, it was a very one-sided fight, basically through 3.5 rounds. But probably my biggest takeaway about Carlos Pradas last week is probably more about the 5th round and the fight IQ we saw in him.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about, how Ian Gary would probably, utilize takedowns in that matchup and look to play it safe, utilizing a lot of footwork, trying to land takedowns or clinch when necessary. That 5th round was pivotal for Carlos Prates. I mean, it was there for the taking. It looked like Ian Gary was hurt numerous times in that 5th round, and there was, a barrage or several big shots away from possibly getting that fight stopped. It just wasn't enough, though. Like, he did not pull the trigger as much as he needed to. And experience is something that is you can't put a price on experience, right? So this is something that Carlos Prates will learn from and hopefully be better going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about what we saw, last week with UFC Kansas City is, Jocelyn Edwards obviously to me was one of the ones that really was not a fighter that I was trying to go to. She got 109 points in terms of that, going out there and doing what she was able to do. Malcolm Wellmaker, that beautiful knockout that he had. Randy Brown, just a beautiful counter. Nicholas Dalby, I mean, it's one of those things that typically, you see fighters who necessarily in that type of situation. With Nicholas Dalby, go out there and they really just kind of maybe try to protect themselves a little bit, try to go for that takedown. Nicholas Dalby said, "Nah, man, I'm going out my shield." And I'll say this, man, as a fight fan, I love to see it. If I'm in the corner of Nicholas Dalby, I'm probably saying, "Hey, brother, shoot."
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't an intelligent fight. It was an absolute brawl. It was an exciting one. I was very, very surprised with how they hit each other with devastating shots. Brown hurt Dalby hurt Brown, and then they just stood toe-to-toe and traded leather. And I remember when Dalby lost that fight, I believe it was to Jesse Ronson, got hit with big shots. If that's the incorrect name, I'm trying to remember. But it was a fighter that it ended up being a no contest, but he was rocked numerous times and dropped and finished. Mm-hmm. And it was very reminiscent of that. And the fight IQ went out the window, and the range was too difficult to overcome against Randy Brown. And then the shots came from angles that he didn't see coming. And credit to Randy Brown. He looked fantastic out there. But all in all, it was definitely not an intelligent fight from either fighter, but it delivered for sure.
Yeah, great matchup that we had there last week at UFC Kansas City. Of course, we will have a DraftKings contest later on this week, so be on the lookout for that. We'll have that link in our Discord channel. Also, we'll add that to the description on YouTube and the podcasting platforms. So let's get right into it. The main event, key matchup in the bantamweight division. We got Cory Sandhagen, who's always kind of been right there in terms of potentially getting a title matchup, taking on the former UFC flyweight champion Deiveson Figueiredo. I was actually kind of surprised when I saw the betting odds on this one. Plus 375 betting underdog, minus 550 for Cory Sandhagen, who's 9,400 on DraftKings. Figueiredo 6,800 on DraftKings. Of course, the last time we saw Cory Sandhagen was back in August, that decision loss against Umar Nurmagomedov. 5 of his last 6 fights have now gone the distance. And one thing to note about that is his last 6 fights have all been scheduled 5-round fights. So the one that did not go the distance went into the 4th round, which was a loss for him. On the other side, Figueiredo, 4 years older than Cory Sandhagen, 37 years old in comparison to 33 for Sandhagen. The last time we saw Figueiredo was that loss to Yana back in November. And of course, we all remember moving up to the 135-pound division. I mean, and I think a lot of that, obviously, you get older, you just can't cut the weight like you once did. So moved up to 135 pounds. He's had 4 fights since moving up. 3 of those 4 fights have gone the distance. The one fight that did not go the distance was his stoppage win against Cody Garbrandt, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, man, oh man, this is an interesting matchup. I mean, Figueiredo dominated the flyweight division. Now at bantamweight, a little bit different, right? Like he's so dangerous still, but the physical advantages that he normally has in matchups, he doesn't have. Like, you're going to have an 8-inch height plus reach advantage for Cory Sandhagen in this bout. And Deiveson Figueiredo he was a big flyweight, and he's a normal size bantamweight, but you're going to come across these big guys a part of this weight class like Sandhagen, who's just long and rangy. And it's the output from Figueiredo from a striking standpoint that always kind of makes me scratch my head, because he'll land powerful shots, but his power translated so much better at 125 pounds than it does at 135 pounds. I mean, if you stand there, he will knock you out. But like these guys are able to minimize damage a little bit better, and take a shot a little bit better from Figueiredo at 35. I mean, Figueiredo's attempting like 5.38 strikes per minute, whereas Sandhagen's attempting about 11.4. So pretty large difference in that regard. But the way that Figueiredo has been finding success is by implementing his wrestling, and that's definitely been a way for him to bank rounds, get some control time, work towards taking the back, body triangling his opponents. And Cory Sandhagen has a 63% takedown defense rating, and that's going to be tested. It's definitely going to be tested against Deiveson Figueiredo, because I don't think Figueiredo can strike with Sandhagen's volume, with Sandhagen's diversity, with Sandhagen's variety. He's going to want to minimize damage and try to get in the driver's seat and control Cory Sandhagen and look to implement wrestling, taking the back, and trying to do his best Aljamain Sterling impression out there. I'm expecting Figueiredo to attempt about 8 takedowns in this bout at least, and I do think that he's going to have some success, and he'll probably land about 2.93. But I think that on the flip side, we've seen Sandhagen improve his wrestling as well. I remember when he went out there and was completely injured and took Rob Font down numerous times. This is a guy in Cory Sandhagen who, might be looking to attempt about 6 takedowns in this bout, because he just chains everything together. Yes, he's going to be the better striker and probably the crisp guy that can combine his punches with his kicks, but he's looking to win in all areas and exhaust you. And I think that the more Figueiredo spends defending takedowns, the more taxed he's going to become as well. So, I mean, he definitely has to be careful of the guillotine, which is a big, big worry anytime that you implement a takedown against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But I do think that Sandhagen training at elevation, just demonstrating such leaps and bounds in his game over the course of the past years, he's improved a lot in my eyes. And the line is exceptionally wide. I was a little surprised at how wide it was. I was expecting like minus 250, minus 300, just because of Figueiredo's name and what he's done in the sport. But given everything, the output just seems to be way too much for Figueiredo to handle, in my personal opinion. And then you have to worry about getting knocked out on the feet against Cory Sandhagen. So I'm expecting Figueiredo to have moments in this fight, attempt takedowns, attempt about 8 takedowns, might land about 3 of them. And I think that Sandhagen, to the surprise of many, can actually land takedowns in his own right, about 2 takedowns in this bout. And I'm expecting Sandhagen to be a priority play for me for most of my lineups. I know it's a spend up, but we have 5 rounds to work with in this bout. And at 9,400, I like the floor, I like the ceiling, and I like what I've seen against Vera, against Font, Song Yadong even. I think 100 points is definitely in the realm of possibility, and probably the low, because Figueiredo is going to make him work. So give me Sandhagen here to beat Deiveson Figueiredo.
Kind of one of the crazy things you were talking about, the size difference between these two guys. The fact is, while Cory Sandhagen is 5'11", Deiveson Figueiredo is 5'5", he actually only has a 2-inch reach advantage in this match. It's kind of a little bit of a crazy note. But, and to me, the other stat that stuck out to me when I was doing my research was the strikes landed per minute. Deiveson Figueiredo, 2.91. On the other side, Cory Sandhagen, 5.02. And I feel like ever since Figueiredo came up to 135, one of the common talking points that me and you have had is about whether or not that power was going to be able to translate. I do wonder, if he's able to get those takedowns in this matchup. Can he grind his way to a 25-minute victory? And I was just surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised that Cory Sandhagen's an overwhelming favorite in this matchup. That's not a surprising thing to me. I think it's by how much. If you would have told me he was minus 300, I'd been all right, okay. But when I saw minus 550, I was like, holy cow, was not expecting that number. I mean, the pick for me is going to be Sandhagen. I like him in this matchup as a guy I've always liked. I kind of feel like he's really right there, potentially get a title shot, so I'll pick him there. But, if you're, you looking maybe get a little different, Figueiredo may have some really nice leverage coming up this week. Now, our co-main event is in the middleweight division. It's Reiner de Ridder taking on Bo Nickal. Bo Nickal is a minus 310 betting favorite here. De Ridder plus 245. He's 7,100 DK on the other side. Bo Nickal is 9,100. Of course, I think for a lot of people, if you've been been watching MMA outside of the UFC, you're familiar with De Ridder prior to him coming to UFC with the work he had over there in one championship. He's now 2-0 in the UFC. Both those wins have come via submissions. Win against Gerald Meerschaert, and then most recently, coming off that win against Kevin Holland. Out of his 19 career victories, 14 of those have come via submission. Bo Nickal, of course, when you talk about, one of the best prospects we've seen come into mixed martial arts, before, he's always been that guy that people were really highly touted because what that amateur wrestling abilities that he did have. Already 4-0 in the UFC. Went the distance last time against Paul Craig. And Pete, you may remember when we were breaking down that Paul Craig fight, one of the things, and I don't know if I mentioned it, you mentioned it, maybe both of us maybe mentioned it on the show, was simply saying, is this a fight where maybe we see Bo Nickal kind of use some cage time? And he admitted it after the fact. He's like, yeah, man, I want to be able to get in there and get some cage time in there. And to me, this is, you look at both these guys, and obviously we all know about what Bo Nickal can do in terms of the wrestling, but we've seen him do it with the hands. But De Ridder, that's his game, and it just really makes me wonder how much De Ridder's game plan is actually going to be to utilize his grappling.
Yeah, it's such a weird fight, right? And, Reiner de Ridder has had tremendous success outside the UFC. Coming into the UFC, victory over GM3, victory over Kevin Holland. The issue, though, is that he's paired up against Bo Nickal, who's an absolute prospect, collegiate wrestler, dominant collegiate wrestler, one of the best wrestlers we've seen in some time. And Bo Nickal is not going to be easy to take down at all. And I almost think that it's just not going to happen. I think that Bo Nickal defending takedowns against a jiu-jitsu practitioner is going to be like taking candy from a baby. One back take can change everything. One time getting put on your back can change everything as a wrestler as well. A leg lock or a fluky submission, Bo Nickal has to be careful here. But let's also not forget that Bo Nickal, with limited MMA training and jiu-jitsu training, went out there against Gordon Ryan, in a grappling-only match, and did damn well. The instincts that this guy has on the ground are some of the highest in the sport. And I do think that if he went out there and wrestled offensively more and utilized his skills, people would get behind him a little bit more as a prospect. There was a time when everybody was saying Bo Nickal is going to beat 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀 𝗠𝗿𝗀. And then we watched Bo Nickal underwhelm for some time, for several fights, coast in one of them, getting that cage time because he's such a prolific finisher. And now the script has flipped, and everybody is like anti-Bo Nickal. He's not good. He's awful. He had issues with Jamie Pickett. He had issues with Cody Brundage. He had issues against Paul Craig. This guy isn't going to materialize into a champion. The foundation's still there. The wrestling and the grappling is still there. And I think that his anti-wrestling, his takedown defense in this bout is going to be pivotal. I mean, he's the better striker in this matchup than De Ridder. The hands do have power. He is fast. He's explosive. I think that he could actually go out there and slam De Ridder on his head if he wants to. The issue, though, is that he's then going to be right in harm's way where De Ridder wants to fight. So what does he do? He uses his wrestling defensively, keeps the fight standing, beats him up on the feet. If a round is close, then maybe we do see Bo Nickal utilize the wrestling. Or you go out there and you start to think of this from like a big brain perspective, where Bo Nickal goes, everybody's talking about this guy's grappling, this guy's wrestling. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to out-grapple him just to prove a point of how much better I am than him. It's not the most intelligent strategy out there, but I can definitely see Bo Nickal doing it. He is surrounded by some of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world at American Top Team in Coconut Creek. with his wrestling team that he goes back and forth to train with. He's a very, very prepared athlete, and I think the best is yet to come, truthfully. I know that De Ridder has success on the mat with almost everybody. In this bout, Jason, according to his stats in his very small sample size in the UFC, he has landed 6.89 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 46% takedown accuracy. I mean, he's going to be attempting 10-plus takedowns in this bout all day long, 15 at that. And I don't think that he's going to find success with more than one of them. It may only take one to get into an advantageous jiu-jitsu position, but I just don't see it happening. I think that he's going to strike out here in the takedowns, and I think Bo Nickal is going to beat him up on the feet en route to a dominant decision, or Bo Nickal goes out there, like I said, like an egomaniac and tries to out-grapple and out-wrestle the grappler, and that's where his best path, well, not his best path, but his best ceiling is. Because we haven't even seen the takedown city of Bo Nickal. It's coming in one of these matchups when he has to utilize it. I just don't know if this is the correct one, because if he goes out there and has to attempt 7 to 10 takedowns, it's a wrap. He's the control time and just the mat returns and the dominance in that department is going to be spectacular. But with all that being said, I just don't see how De Ridder beats him here. I truthfully don't. You have Bo Nickal, 5 years younger. You have a height plus reach advantage for De Ridder at 5 inches. But I think all of De Ridder's game is landing a takedown. He may pull guard, but I just don't see it happening. I think Bo Nickal gets a pretty dominant win here. But just like previous Bo Nickal fights, he may be too patient at 9,100.
I think one of the things that happens in our sport, Pete, and especially when we're talking about from a daily fantasy and a betting aspect, is when you have a fighter come in with all the notoriety that Bo Nickal has and still has, is that when all of a sudden you don't get that first or second round victory, people kind of sit there and kind of get down on you a little bit, even though, and this as a fighter and as a coach, sometimes it's not a bad thing to go in there and get that cage experience. I mean, look, and De Ridder's been running this game for a long time. I kind of do feel like you see a little bit more defensive wrestling. I think Bo Nickal's going to win by knockout. Here on Saturday, and I don't mind the $9,100 price tag. When I start seeing some more props out there, I'll be interested to see what kind of the prop is on Nickal, to win via TKO KO. That's one of the things that I've really been doing in terms of betting is more. I've just been kind of looking for the good spots that where I see. In under 2.5 rounds, I like the number there, or a TKO, or more been putting inside the distance, unless like there's just a big gap between the TKO KO and submission. And then when there are some props out there, like on takedowns, something I do look at there. But you give me Bo Nickal in this one, I think he gets the job done. Next up, we got a welterweight matchup between Santiago Ponzinibbio and Daniel Rodriguez. Ponzinibbio at minus 120 betting fair, plus 100 for D-Rod, who is 8,000 on DK. Ponzinibbio is 8,200. One of the things about Santiago Ponzinibbio is just things have been up and down for him since returning back in 2021. Had a lot of injuries prior to that, 3-5 since returning in 2021. He is coming off a third-round TKO victory against Carlston Harris. D-Rod on the other side, we saw him back in October, a split decision win against Alex Morono. And one of the things that to me sticks out when you're just kind of doing that resume research on Daniel Rodriguez is the fact is his losses are against a notable competition in this division: Gaston, Gary, Magny. But one of the things that truly did stick out to me, and I'm sure it stuck out to you, is looking at the strikes landed per minute and the strikes absorbed per minute for these guys. Ponzinibbio lands 4.8 strikes per minute. He absorbs 4.61 per minute. On the other side, Daniel Rodriguez lands 7.50, and then he absorbs 5.47, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, both of these guys have pretty poor striking defense. I mean, not even that. It's just they're willing to trade. Both of their striking defense, surprisingly, is at 61%. For Ponzinibbio and 58% for Daniel Rodriguez. But the metrics, man, it seems like it's a lot worse than that. The output significantly favors Daniel Rodriguez, and I'm surprised, but I'm not, because like the attempted strikes for Rodriguez sit at 15.31, and the attempted strikes for Ponzinibbio sit at 11.7. So I did all of this, right? I plugged in the data and I developed the projections. And then I fully expected Daniel Rodriguez to be the favorite. And I look at the DFS salaries, and to my surprise, Daniel Rodriguez is 8,000. So for me, I'm expecting this to be close. I'm expecting Daniel Rodriguez to throw more. I'm expecting him to land more. And then I don't know, man. I'm just a little surprised that Daniel Rodriguez is sitting at 8,000. I mean, I'm expecting it to be a competitive fight, but I'm favoring Daniel Rodriguez here, Jason. So I guess he'll be my first underdog of the card so far. I'm just, both of these guys are aged, but if you look at their career and you start to take damage into account, I'm pretty sure we can say that Ponzinibbio's been through a lot more wars and has taken way more shots than Daniel Rodriguez, at least meaningful shots. I mean, Ponzinibbio was on a tear quite some time within the division, was known as the dark horse of the division. But that's some time from now. You know what I mean? Like, I think like the younger, I can't even say younger, the guy with the fresher career in the UFC, I think is going to get it done here. I think that D-Rod's volume is just going to be a little too much for Ponzinibbio to keep up. And I also worry about Ponzinibbio's chin. I mean, in various fights, Carlston Harris dropped him. That fight was bananas, but he did come back and win. He was dropped against Kevin Holland. He was dropped against Alex Morono. He was dropped against Li Jingliang. I mean, I can go on and on. Lorenz Larkin dropped him. Ryan LaFleur dropped him. So we've seen Ponzinibbio get cracked and get hurt. Daniel Rodriguez, on the other hand, outside of getting head kicked by Ian Machado Gary and getting hit with a piston right hand from Dwight Grant, we haven't seen the question marks around that durability as much. If Ponzinibbio goes out there and outboxes him, sure. I mean, that wouldn't really surprise me. But with Daniel Rodriguez being a southpaw advantage is a real thing. And then having the fresher legs, having the higher volume, I don't think this fight hits the mat. I think that, both of them have pretty solid takedown defense. I'm expecting this fight to remain standing. Ponzinibbio is willing to get into a boxing match, and so is Daniel Rodriguez. And I think they're going to trade leather until somebody falls or until somebody gets cut up and busted up en route to a TKO. So I'm going to be backing Daniel Rodriguez here as a slight underdog, and to my surprise, he's at a discount here.
Yeah, when you look at this matchup, to me one of the things that does come to mind is that fantasy score upside, and let's just say this thing goes 15 minutes. You got to go back a little while to see Daniel Rodriguez. There's a matchup from a couple years ago where he landed 120 strikes in a 15-minute matchup. That's to me is my only concern about this matchup. I would say on the betting side, I'd actually be looking at decision props in this one.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't like fully expect it to finish inside the distance, but I do know like Daniel Rodriguez can throw at pretty high volume, and like 120 and 120, we've seen it numerous times. If he gets high 80s, like 86.5, 87.5, something like that, priced at 8,000, depending on how the slate goes, it might be necessary. It might not be, but it's definitely helpful, like anything 80 and up, I'm not mad at, because we're trying to predict the future, right? But, I would love to see more. I would love to see a high volume into a late finish. That would be fantastic. And given my question marks around Santiago Ponzinibbio's legs and his chin, I'm willing to back Daniel Rodriguez here at 8,000, a little bit more than probably the public.
Next up, we got a matchup between Montel Jackson and Daniel Marcos. Marcos a plus 180, betting underdog minus 224. Montel Jackson, who's 8,700 DK. Marcos is 7,500. Of course, the last time we saw Montel was back in July of last year, 18-second knockout against Damon Blackshear. He has won 5 in a row. 6 of his 10 UFC fights have gone the distance. When you look at Marcos, coming off a split decision win back in December against Adrian Yanez, he is unbeaten in the UFC. 3 of his 4 UFC wins have come via decision. But, you know, when you look at some of the stats this matchup that are going to stick out to you, 6-inch reach advantage for Montel Jackson. Daniel Marcos lands 5.9 strikes per minute in comparison to 3.39. But on the other side, when you look at the takedowns, Montel Jackson 3.41 and Marcos is at 0.59.
This is a hell of a fight, Jason. This is a hell of a fight. I mean, this is one of my favorite on the entire card because I believe in both of these guys. I mean, to my surprise, Montel Jackson has turned into an absolute force for the division. And same thing with Marcos. I understand that he was undefeated, but not every undefeated athlete is the same, right? Like sometimes we have athletes coming here with soft padded records, and then they get exposed in the best promotion in the game. Marcos, to my surprise, is starting to really develop and turn into a legitimate contender. I have to tell you, Jason. But on the other side, I think that Montel Jackson's been a guy that I've always circled and said, man, this guy is very difficult to deal with for the division. I mean, everybody talks about it. The size of this guy's hands are crazy. So when he hits you within this division, he doesn't even have to be all that accurate because his fist is gigantic. It's like he's punching with lunchboxes out there. Very similar to like a Brock Lesnar size fist. And it's kind of crazy. And then you take into account he's a spectacular wrestler. Maybe a wrestler that doesn't go to the well as much as I would like him to. Granted, his stats tell a different story, but the fight film is like, all right, like you can pull the trigger a little bit more, and he can pull the trigger a little bit more in both striking and in the takedown department. Like his stats sit at 3.41 takedowns per 15 minutes. That sounds fine and dandy. That's about, you know what, a takedown a round in a perfect world, but it's the significant strikes landed per minute at 3.39, which goes to show me the fight film backs it up that he's pretty patient at times. He's waiting for that big shot, or he doesn't have to throw a lot because when he hits you, he hurts you. I think that he could be in for a very difficult matchup here against Marcos because I'm not expecting Marcos to go away easy. You know, I'm not expecting 6.39 strikes attempted per minute to be enough to make Marcos back away from you or make Marcos want to quit. Obviously, if he hits him on the chin and knocks him out, it's a completely different story. But sometimes you want to intimidate your opposition with high volume, and Jackson does not do that. I mean, like if I look at the attempted 6.39 strikes attempted for Jackson and the takedowns about 4.8, you know, he's landing with pretty solid accuracy for the takedowns at 71%. But I think that Marcos is going to present some issues because Marcos hits and lands with high volume, as you mentioned, 5.9 significant strikes landed per minute, and the attempted strikes sit at about 11.13. So he's nearly doubling up Jackson in comparable fights. You know, not looking to take or initiate takedowns, a 0.59 per 15 minutes, but he will attempt one if he needs to, if it's a close round. The intangibles in this matchup makes it a very, very difficult fight to predict and project because of the 9-inch height plus reach advantage for Montel Jackson. You know, he's on a heater right now. He's on a 5-fight win streak. Has shown some vulnerabilities in the past. He's not an unbeatable guy. Like we've seen him lose to Brett Johns. We've seen him lose to Ricky Simone. He is on a 5-fight win streak, but the strength of schedule, right? Like Jesse Strader and JP Bays, easy wins for him. Julio Arce, a very competitive 15-minute decision. Hana Yaya was not going to take down Montel Jackson. Jackson knocking out Damon Blackshear, very, very impressive. But like those 5 I mentioned, it's nothing spectacular, right? Like, and we've already seen he's inactive. He doesn't fight more than about once a year. There, and back in 2021, he had 2 fights, but since then it's been 1 fight a year. This is a guy that I think and wish he was in the cage more, because I do think that he has ranking potential. But what's more impressive than 5 fights in a row? 17 fights in a row. And Daniel Marcos has shown no vulnerabilities that I've seen. Outside of getting into an absolute brawl with Davey Grant, where that fight was a split decision, he's shown to pass each and every test put in front of him. Even Adrian Yanez, that was a split decision, but he showcased his takedowns in that fight. This is a guy that hits really hard. He's not just a boxer. He'll calf kick the hell out of everybody. He'll calf kick. He'll switch stances. So I do expect him to calf kick Montel Jackson's lead leg. And because he can switch between stances, it's impressive to me. And you don't want to know why I'm going to be backing Marcos here as an underdog. So, a second underdog on this card for me. It's because of who Daniel Marcos is training with. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a perfect person to simulate Montel Jackson. And that's 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗀, PFL superstar. He's a giant 6 foot 5'11" featherweight out there, or whatever the hell weight class he's in. I believe he's a featherweight. But he's been smoking everybody in PFL. And he's sparring 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗀. And I think that will prepare him in itself against Montel Jackson more than anything. So I'm backing Daniel Marcos here, man. I think that it's a very close fight, as my projections say it's going to be a competitive fight. But I'm going to be backing Daniel Marcos. The undefeated fighter strikes again, and I think that he's going to pass this difficult test in front of him in Montel Jackson.
My concern in doing the underdog call here is really about that reach disadvantage that Marcos is going to have here. I truly do believe, even though we saw Montel go out there and get that big knockout in his last one, that this is a matchup that if he's able to utilize his grappling and not allow this to become a kickboxing matchup. If you tell me this is a 15-minute kickboxing matchup, yeah, I think Daniel Marcos got a really good shot. But to me, I'm really high on Montel Jackson. I think he gets the job done here. I think he improves a winning streak to 6 in a row. Next up, we have got Cameron Smotherman taking on Serhiy Sidey. Sidey minus 140 betting favorite, plus 120 for Smotherman, who's 7,800 on DK. Sidey is 8,400 over on DraftKings. Of course, we saw the UFC debut of Cameron Smotherman back in October last year. Decision win against Jack Hadley, who probably is the favorite to win the bantamweight tournament this year in the PFL. He has, by the way, speaking of Cameron, he's won 4 straight since losing on Dana White's Contender Series. Sidey on the other side, the last time we saw him, got a split decision win against Garrett Armfield back in November. Both of his UFC wins come by split decision, so I'm sure you probably get a good number if you want to say he's going to make it 3 in a row here. Prior to entering the UFC, a guy that was known for going there against stoppages, 8 stoppage victories in his career, and he will have a 3-inch reach advantage, Pete.
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. Serhiy Sidey is a guy that I'm a little torn on, right? Because, watching the training footage of him and watching moments inside the cage, I do see skills. He pushes a pretty high pace in the striking department. I'm not really sold on him being a complete mixed martial artist, though, and he gets hit a lot. And I think, I don't know, man. And when he throws, his accuracy is pretty damn poor. So this matchup against Smotherman is interesting because they both have pretty poor striking accuracy. 39% for Serhiy Sidey and 37% for Smotherman. But Smotherman throws with more volume, 6.25 strikes landed per minute, whereas Sidey is at 4.87. The attempted for Sidey is at 12.48, and Smotherman is at 16.89, given the small sample size. But, I think this is a close fight, and I think this is one where, I'm not sold on Sidey being a true staple within the division or true UFC talent. So I'm not expecting either one of these guys to really attempt any takedowns. I think this is going to be a kickboxing match. You have a 5-inch height plus reach advantage for Serhiy Sidey, but 1-year youth advantage for Smotherman. I'm going to be backing Smotherman to pull off an upset. So what's that? 3 underdogs in a row for me: Rodriguez, Marcos, and Smotherman. I think Smotherman pulls it off. I think that his volume's going to be pretty high. He hits damn hard. We've seen Serhiy City get busted up in the past, and he wears that damage right on his face. And I think it's where, like, all right, well, getting a win over Jake Hadley, to me, impressed me, because I'm seeing Hadley go out there and, do pretty well in the PFL, right? So I'm going to be back at Smotherman here. Serhiy City's a guy where, if you look at his regional career, I'm not really impressed all that much. Strength of schedule, let me see. Strength of schedule for him, sitting at 60%. Within his wins, 57% strength of his wins. So he's fought some decent guys, but the win strength is a little low for my liking. So I'm going to be back in Smotherman here. He's got a comparable resume, and I think he's the better striker. I think he's going to be the more active fighter, and I'm going to be picking him to pull off a decision victory over City at 7,800.
Yeah, when you look at Cameron coming out of that Fury FC system, which, primarily for a regional show is not really I wouldn't say they're, a regional show that kind of gives you those cupcake matchups. I think they do a very excellent job of kind of, bringing you along, putting you in the right matchups here. I'm going to go with City in this matchup like you. I do think this is going to go 15 minutes. I think it's a close matchup. I think it comes down to the third round, and it's going to be 29-28. Either way on this one, but I'll give a slight edge to Serhiy City for me. Then we got Jeremy Stephens returning to MMA competition for the first time since 2022. Only a one-fight deal here for him, taking on Mason Jones. Since his mixed martial arts exit, has been competing in boxing and most recently in BKFC, coming off that third round corner stoppage win against Eddie Alvarez. You look at Mason Jones, second stint in the UFC for him, went 1-2 and won no contest in his first stint in the UFC. He is coming off a decision win back in July over there in Cage Warriors. Jones is going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. Kind of an interesting stat to me, that because when you think of Jeremy Stephens, we think of his striking ability, but when you look at in terms of in UFC competition, Jeremy Stephens only lands 3.61 strikes per minute in comparison to 5.61. And you just got to imagine, I think it's got to be a fight that if you're Mason Jones, it's got to be getting the matchup to the ground.
Yeah, so I'm just like you. I was surprised when I was looking at some of the statistics for Jeremy Stephens, because his highlight reel speaks for itself. Like, when he hits people, he knocks them out pretty bad. But if you go back and you actually watch, he's got a lot of full fights out there, and he's hit a lot of people. So he's had great moments, but the guy's had like 70 fights. So when the guy's had so many fights like that, yes, he's lost a ton. He's going to come across some highlight reel knockouts time and time again. But like, I was pretty underwhelmed with what I saw on film and then what I saw in the database. As you mentioned, 5.61 strikes landed for Mason Jones, a guy that I've been very high on, and he's lost me a ridiculous amount of money. In the past, the loss to Ludovic Klein has aged significantly well. Klein's a legitimate fighter for the division and contender. But like, Mason Jones is something that I really believed in from the regional scene into the UFC. I thought the kid has it all. He's got very good hands. He's aggressive. He's got good wrestling. But, he fell short in a couple of bouts and, went outside the UFC, picked up some nice wins, and now he's back in the UFC. And, it's a nice card for Stephens to fight in Des Moines, Iowa, obviously, right? But I don't think the UFC is doing him any favors here. I think it's like, hey, we need somebody to fight Mason Jones. Will you do it? Jeremy Stephens doesn't care who it is. He can land that shot and knock out Mason Jones, but the issue here is that Mason Jones is going to be the better minute winner, in my opinion. As you mentioned, 5.61 strikes landed for Mason Jones, 3.17 for Jeremy Stephens. His success in MMA is pretty low, few and far between. His success in BKFC, it suits his style so much more, right? Like, he does not have the same success in MMA because he's dealing and worrying about takedowns with calf kicks with everything. And when they just stand and throw hands, that's where he can have success and hurt you and win these BKFC bouts. But in MMA, like throwing landing 3.17 when your opponent's landing 5.61 translates to Stevens throwing about 8 strikes and Mason Jones throwing about 12.75. So Mason Jones would be the busier guy here. And then in addition to that, Mason Jones lands 3.16 takedowns per 15 minutes, which means he's attempting about 7 takedowns per 15 minutes. And, given Jeremy Stevens' history, like he'll defend some takedowns, 65% takedown defense rating is pretty solid, but he will get taken down. And like Mason Jones can do everything. He's 8 years younger. He has 4 inches in height plus reach. The line is wide and it's significantly favoring Mason Jones. But I agree with it, right? Like 9,500, you are the prospect. You should not be losing to Jeremy Stevens. I don't necessarily think he goes out there and shatters the score boxes. I personally like Sandhagen more because he's got 5 rounds to work with. But I do see a world where Mason Jones puts together a hell of a performance and looks like in control of the entire bout. Jeremy Stevens is whiffing, throwing big, heavy shots, trying to knock out his opponent and coming up short. So give me Mason Jones here to put together a complete mixed martial arts performance and do it pretty easily. So I like him here. It's just the salary call makes me kind of a little hesitant.
This is kind of a rarity for the UFC, Pete, is signing a fighter to a 1-fight deal, but you have to look at, well, why would they do that? They're in Des Moines, Iowa. Where's Jeremy Stevens from? Des Moines, Iowa. Yeah, this is something that primarily in this game we see promotions not named the UFC do, where you bring in the fighter that's going to put asses in the seats, and that's what it seems like. And Jeremy Stevens, his contract was up with BKFC. I would imagine BKFC would like to have him back. But you come in here, and if you're Jeremy Stevens, hey, you go out there and just say you can pull off a highlight reel knockout win. It's a great leverage spot for you. If you go out there and you don't get the victory, let's just say you lose a decision. BKFC is going to be sitting there waiting for him. So to me, this is a great situation for Jeremy Stevens. It is kind of interesting to see him as a plus 400 betting underdog in this one. I mean, you got to pay a high price tag on DraftKings if you want Mason Jones at 9,500. That to me is where I need to see those takedowns, to pay off that price point.
Yeah, and I think that he's very smart and he will utilize takedowns. I have him landing 2.45 takedowns, but at that price tag, he needs to do a lot more than that. He needs to finish Jeremy Stevens. He needs to throw high volume or take him to Takedown City. I mean, what better recipe, right, to face somebody when they've just been doing BKFC the past 4 fights or whatever and go out there and wrestle him. Do what he hasn't been doing the past 4 fight camps. Just do like what he's been despising of doing. You know what I mean? Like go out there and wrestle him. But I can't guarantee that happens. But I do really like Mason Jones in this matchup to pick up a very nice win over a notable name.
Next up, we got a female matchup in the 135-pound division. You got Yana Santos taking on Miesha Tate. Santos, a plus 115 betting underdog, minus 135 for Miesha, who's 8,300 DK. Yana Santos is 7,900. Yana Santos is coming off a decision win back in August against Chelsea Chandler. All of her UFC wins have come via decision. She's gone to the distance in 7 of her 10 UFC fights. All of her UFC losses, by the way, have come by TKO and KO. For Miesha Tate, we have not seen her since December of 2023, that third-round submission win against Juliana. She is 2-2 since coming back there in 2021. Pete, this just to me is, if you tell me this is a 15-minute striking matchup, I think Yana Santos walks away with a 15-minute decision. But if you tell me Miesha Tate can get this fight to the ground, I think Miesha could walk away with a decision victory.
Yeah, so I'm interested here, right? Because in women's MMA, a lot of people want to take a standoff approach. If it's a chalky women's MMA fight, people are a little bit more interested to get behind. I mean, look at Jocelyn Edwards last week. Went out there and beat the shit out of Chelsea Chandler. Finished her inside of round 1. And it goes to show you that Chelsea Chandler was breakable, right? Like, we liked Jocelyn Edwards a lot. And I think one of the most bet props out there was probably Edwards via decision. And Vegas, like, thank God Vegas didn't have to worry about that because, Edwards went out there and finished her relatively quickly. Miesha Tate's always been suspect on the feet. And I think that Yana Santos will front kick her, will side kick her, will move a little bit, and will clearly be the better fighter. The hands advantage will go to Miesha Tate, in my opinion, but she just doesn't throw enough, right? Like, lands 2.62 significant strikes per minute, which is attempting 5.8 strikes per minute. Santos, 4.42 landing per minute, 7.6 attempted per minute. But what Miesha Tate can do is what Yana Santos attempts to do to everybody, but she's just better. So, like, Yana Santos will cage push and will put her opponents against the cage and kind of wall and stall. Miesha Tate will put them against the cage and initiate takedowns. And she'll initiate takedowns en route to jiu-jitsu. So looking to choke you out, look at the elbow, a hole in your face. And, Miesha Tate lands 2.02 takedowns per 15 minutes. But she's attempting about 6 to 7 takedowns in 15-minute fights. So I'm expecting her to really test that poor takedown defense of Yana Santos, which sits at 42%. I think she can land anywhere from 3+ takedowns, and she can make this fight look relatively easy if she goes out there and takes the path of least resistance. Obviously, Yana Santos is physical. Obviously, Yana Santos has 3 years 3 years younger than Miesha Tate, so she has that advantage, and she has 2 inches in the height plus reach department. But I'm going to be back in Miesha Tate here. I think that she's going to go out there and showcase her dominant grappling and pick up a submission win or a TKO finish over Yana Santos. So maybe an unpopular call, but I kind of like Miesha Tate to go out there and finish Yana Santos. I know that she's been absent from the cage for a little bit, but absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? So maybe she's coming into this fight with a crazy love for the game, and she can't wait to really just, prove the fans wrong and show that she can actually, kind of piggyback off that Julia Avila submission finish in the 3rd round where she scored 116.5. I mean, the Murphy fight was pathetic. She shouldn't have lost that bout, priced at 8,800, scoring 45 fantasy points. But I don't think that Yana Santos is Lauren Murphy. So I'm going Miesha Tate here at 8,300. I like the discount, and I'll take my chances.
I like the fantasy score upside in terms of Miesha Tate because of that grappling ability. Because to me, if she's going to win this matchup, it is going to be due to her grappling. So when I look at that, I say, hey, I like the value there. I don't know if she would where she would fall in a parlay piece for me, but that minus 135 price tag does intrigue me as well, just because of I do believe she's going to be able to get the fight to the ground, and Miesha has said some things about wanting to get back into the title contention. I think that's someone in their team probably needs to have a more realistic conversation with her, because where her age in where she's at, unless you go out there and start finishing your opponents, I don't think that's very realistic to think. And I think these are the type of matchups that the UFC is going to put her in. But I'll pick Miesha Tate to go out there and get the victory. Next up, we got Loder and Azamat. Loder, of course, is the TUF 32 middleweight winner. He's a 3-1 betting underdog here against Azamat, who is minus 400, 9,300 DK. Loder is 6,900. Ryan Loder was supposed to fight there back in March against Cody Brunish. That did not take place here. Supposed to be his first fight since winning on the Ultimate Fighter Season 32. And we saw the UFC debut of Azamat back there in January. Very impressive TKO win there against Zacharias. He is a former LFA middleweight champion, but one advantage that Ryan Loder does have in this matchup is that reach advantage of 4 inches.
This is a really compelling fight, and it's one where my projections are anticipating a close bout. And the reason why I'm anticipating it being a close bout is because of the wrestling skills of both gentlemen here. Bekoev is a fantastic fighter, a very good wrestler, training out of American Top Team. Took last fight against Zachary Reese on short notice. Ryan Loder, a very, very dominant wrestler who has learned the skills of ground and pound and has some of the best elbow finishes on the mat I've seen in some time. I mean, uh, go and look at some of Ryan Loder's tape and you'll see the ground and pound finish I'm talking about. It's absolutely brutal because he pins his opponents down. He's very heavy on top. He likes to get into side control or scarf hold. He will try even getting into crucifix position if he can. All positions that Uriah Faber used to dominate opposition with in lighter weight classes because of his wrestling skills. So I find this fight to be extremely interesting because Bekoev looked great on short notice, and went out there and was able to pull off the victory. He's probably the better striker in this matchup against Loder. I definitely can say that. He has a larger career in MMA. He's fought some solid competition. If I look at the strength of schedule for Bekoev, it's at 67%, whereas Loder is at 51%. So definitely an advantage for Bekoev with the experience and the strength of schedule. 4 years younger than Loder, but Loder has 6 inches in the height plus reach department. So I actually think that we could see takedowns landed or attempted from both guys. But my fear for Loder is that, this fight remains standing and that he just gets bested on the feet by Bekoev. But I really can see them both landing takedowns and having moments. If you go back and you watch Bekoev's regional tape, there's a moment where he gets put into scarf hold and he gets taken down. Yes, he was landing takedowns in the first 2 frames, but in the third round, he attempted a takedown, got a little sloppy, got taken down, got his back taken, then got planted, and then got put into scarf hold and was submitted. And it looked like an exhaustion tap where the high-level wrestler and grappler he was facing just really put it on him and made him pick a way out. And he chose to get out of that position by tapping out. So I can definitely see a guy in Ryan Loder presenting problems. And given my projections, which you guys can have access to inside the description below, if you want, for $9.99 a month on Patreon, if you want to have extra data at your disposal, I'm anticipating it to be a close bout or one where they both have upside. So I will pick Bekoev to win the bout because I think that he is a better striker. But maybe I'm not in love with the salaries because I don't think it's an easy fight. Like 9,300, and I think that's basically recency bias because on short notice he was 8,800 over Zachary Reese. He's been very talented overall, but like Ryan Loder's, it's hard to bet against a very talented wrestler. And Loder has shown like he can go out there and compete. So I don't like doubting competitors, but I will pick Bekoev to edge him out over 15 minutes.
Yeah, I like the call there. In terms of that, and I really was right before the show. I was actually going back and I was watching a little bit of that matchup against Zach Reese, and very talented fighter that you have there. Next up, we got a female matchup: Marina Rodriguez taking on Gillian Robertson. Gillian minus 350 betting favorite in this one, plus 265 for Rodriguez, who's 7,000 on DK. Gillian Robinson is 9,200. Marina Rodriguez, at one time, she was looked at as a potential title challenger in this division. However, things have gone bad for her in the last 5 fights, 1-4 in the last 5 fights. Her last 2 defeats have come via split decision. Of course, primarily a decision fighter in the UFC. 11 or 14 fights in the UFC have gone the distance. Gillian Robertson on a 4-fight winning streak. 3 of those wins have come via decision, coming off a decision win against Pinheiro in her last matchup. 7 submission wins in the UFC. I mean, if there was a picture for armbar from guard, I feel like Gillian Robertson might be that picture that you would think of there. And, this is, one matchup where you got Marina Rodriguez is more the volume puncher than Gillian Robertson, but Gillian Robertson is more of the grappler.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup and one where Gillian Robertson, if I had to put one word attached to her, I would say growth. I think she's grown significantly inside the UFC under the tutelage of some of the best MMA minds out there. She has Dean Thomas, who works with her significantly all the time. Gillian Robertson's striking is always going to be her weakest point. 2.89 significant strikes landed per minute, whereas Rodriguez is at 4.64. She's going to get edged out and outpointed and outworked on the feet. Rodriguez attempted 10 significant strikes, Robertson attempting 6. But that's not where you have to worry, right? Like, Rodriguez wants this fight on the feet with every ounce of her being. She does not want to hit the mat with Gillian Robertson because Robertson's not just a lay and pray artist. Robertson hunts submissions. Robertson has implemented ground and pound. She advances positions. She's an animal. I mean, Gillian Robertson submitted Rose Namajunas in a grappling bout. To me, that's so damn impressive. I think that Gillian Robertson is one of the most slept on takedown and grappling artists in the sport. And because it's women's MMA, people don't give her the time of day. I mean, her takedown accuracy is not good, but what it shows me is that she's very diligent. She'll go out there and she'll keep, biting down on that mouthpiece and trying to get the fight where she is best. Attempting 6+ takedowns per 15 minutes. She's going up against a fighter in Marina Rodriguez who defends takedowns at 62%. But I don't know if that's going to be enough because it could literally be one takedown and that's all she wrote. I mean, 9 years younger, Gillian Robertson. 3 inches in the height plus reach department for Marina Rodriguez. But I think Robertson overcomes that reach. I don't think that the days of Robertson sitting there, just standing and trading and getting knocked out by Macy Barber, standing and trading and getting picked apart by lesser foes. I think that she knows what she's good at, and she's starting to develop an overhand. She's already implemented her ground and pound, so the damage criteria helps her if she can land a takedown. I'm packing Gillian Robertson here, and I'm surprised that I am decently confident, but this is a binary fight. If the fight stays standing, Rodriguez wins. If Robertson is able to initiate takedowns, I think that she can do enough with those takedowns to either finish the fight or dominate the fight, in the eyes of the judges. So give me Gillian Robertson here, man, and she's a fighter that over the years I have become pretty damn impressed with. So 9,200, I don't mind her at all. I like her in this matchup. I think that she pulls off the victory.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is a price tag at 9,200 when you're talking about the fact of if Gillian can't get the fight to the ground, I just don't think she can win a 15-minute decision. That to me is now if you tell me she's going to get the fight to the ground 1, 2, 3, 4 times, I feel really confident about her going out and getting the win. And Dean Thomas deserves a ton of credit for all the work that he's done with her over the past couple of years. But that to me is my concern, just at that price tag of 9,200. I mean, look, if I on a betting side, I'd be looking at that Gillian Robertson wins via submission prop. That to me is where I would be looking at it in terms of that matchup. Next up, we got Gaston Balanos take on Quang Lee, who is a plus 130 betting underdog, 7,700 DK. Gaston Balanos minus 155, and he is 8,500 on DK. Balanos is 2-1 since entering the UFC after his run there in Bellator. His only loss in the UFC is against Marcus McGee, and I don't know if you saw this little note, but Tim Welch kind of threw it out there. Marcus McGee's next fight is against Peter Yan.
Yeah, I heard that. If that's true, holy moly. That's a hell of a step up in competition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hell of a step up in competition. When you talk about Balanos, both of his UFC wins have come via decision. Most recently in November against Cortavius Ramos. For Lee on the other side, 0-2 in the UFC, coming off a third-round TKO loss. And look, and we've talked about this now for a couple episodes now. I mean, you're 0-2 in the UFC. Cut season is here, and if Lee can't get the victory, I think his days in the UFC will be over.
I mean, I think it goes for both fighters, right? I don't think that the UFC is impressed with Gaston Balanos at all. And Balanos is a guy that I've known of for a while because of Bellator and when I fought in Bellator. In addition to that, on social media, he's a guy that I don't know, he had a pretty viral profile. He had crazy knockouts in kickboxing and Muay Thai, was spinning, elbowing everybody. So he's a name that I've followed throughout the years. And one that has not had the greatest MMA success. I mean, against Aaron Phillips, he was able to pull off the victory, scoring 64.3 points. I didn't think he looked good in that fight, at all. And then he was paired up with Marcus McGee, who knocked him out pretty handily. And then Cortavius Romeus. That fight sucked. And Romeus has proven to not be UFC level at all. So I don't really know if Gaston Balanos belongs in the UFC, truthfully. I think that his kickboxing is good. He's a little too patient at times. I think that if he went out there and was aggressive, we could see his skills on full display. Attempting 7.48 strikes per minute for Balanos when Quang Le is attempting 8.62 and has power in his hands and definitely has the boxing advantage, in my opinion. It's just not enough. I want you to go out there and, attempt 10 plus strikes per minute and chop at the legs and kick to the body and throw your punches. Don't always look for the damn spinning elbow. This is the problem, right? Like when you have a big shot or you have a weapon in your arsenal, people go to it too much. And I think that Balanos can dominate opposition if he just goes out there and just throws more. Like, seriously, just increase the damn volume. And that's something that can be changed from camp to camp and fight to fight. The issue here, though, is I think that the takedowns of Quang Le are something that is going to be a big, big key in this matchup. His takedowns landed per 15 minutes sits at 1.7 with 23% takedown accuracy. I expect him to attempt 5+ takedowns in this bout, more towards 7 takedowns. And I think that he can get one around, if not more around, and win either decision or work towards a potential finish. I just think that he's the better mixed martial artist here. I think we still have Gaston Balanos. We've seen it in Bellator. He has great kicks. He has a great striking arsenal, but his takedown defense is not good. It sits at 42%. And I think that, I think certain fighters can expose it. And we saw Quang Le on short notice give Chris Gutierrez a hell of a fight and attempt 10+ takedowns in that bout. And I really think that Quang Le can do this here. So I think he's the better mixed martial artist. And I'm willing to back him in striking and wrestling rather than just a kickboxer in MMA. So give me Quang Le as my 4th underdog on the card.
You on the underdog city here tonight?
A little bit, man. I think it's gonna be an interesting card, man. And I'm just not in agreement with some of these lines. I'm not sold that Balanos is a better MMA fighter than Quang Le.
I get you on that. Next up, we have got a heavyweight matchup. Thomas Petersen taking on Don'Tale Mayes. Petersen a -260 betting favorite, plus 210 for Don'Tale, who's 7,300 on DK. Petersen 8,900 on DK. And man, this is lower in the UFC heavyweight division. Let's just call it what it is. This is the bottom third of the division. Petersen 1-2 in the UFC. His first 2 fights in the organization went the distance, coming off a first-round TKO loss in his last matchup. Don'Tale Mayes has been in the UFC now for some time, 4-6 with 1 no contest in the UFC. All of his losses to the UFC are either by submission or via decision. Was submitted in his last matchup against Volkan Walker, 1-3 in his last 4. But man, massive size, a reach advantage that he does have in this one of 7 inches, Pete.
Yeah, this fight sucks, huh? My God. Jesus, this is the low level of the heavyweight division for sure. Thomas Petersen is a fantastic wrestler. And any wrestler in the heavyweight division is going to have an advantage, right? Because he has a good single leg, and good single legs are tough for heavyweights to deal with because they manipulate your opponent's body weight. They test your balance. And instead of getting underneath the hips and making somebody defend a double leg or a takedown against the cage, or a body lock, even something where strength and simply fighting for underhooks can negate it, you test your fighter's balance on a single leg takedown. I used to tell all my heavyweights, and I still do. I coach a ton of heavyweights. I say, doubles are great, but now you're going strength versus strength, or you definitely don't want to be caught underneath your opponent if they time a sprawl correct, or if you get tired and you shoot a sloppy double leg. You know what I mean? Now we're eating shots and we're in a terrible position. I'd rather you attempt a single leg takedown and make your fighter balance and manipulate their balance and test it. And Petersen has shown throughout his years in MMA that he has some wise wrestling moves out there. So I like him in this division as like a bottom tier fighter, but one that can win specific matchups. And on the feet, you're going to have Don'Tale Mayes throwing more, slightly more. But Don'Tale Mayes is a guy that I've never really been all that high on. I think that Thomas Petersen's going to be attempting takedowns here, and Don'Tale Mayes having 57% takedown defense rating is going to be tested. I'm expecting Petersen to attempt about 5+ takedowns in this bout, and I think he's going to land at least 2 of them. And when he lands 2 of them, he's going to be wearing on Don'Tale Mayes. He's going to be leaning on him, making him carry his weight, hitting him with ground and pound shots. If Mayes gets back to his feet, you could be looking at Thomas Petersen utilizing some mat return techniques and just kind of riding him throughout the contest. And one where, like, holy moly, this is a lot of leaning up against each other on the cage, Thomas Petersen landing a takedown, and kind of like a stalling or slow pace type of fight. But Petersen does throw some ground and pound, so maybe Mayes gets tired, Mayes gets taxed, Mayes gets lazy, and we see him just be stuck underneath Thomas Petersen. Petersen is 3 years younger, but in the height plus reach department, Don'Tale Mayes has 12 inches. Holy moly. But even with all of that, Jason, even with the physical advantages, Thomas Petersen is still my higher projected player and higher projected fighter in this matchup. So I think he's just pretty good at closing the distance. I think he closes the distance, puts Mayes where he wants him, which is going to be against the cage, dirty boxes him a little bit, chains together a takedown or 2. And this is a pretty boring heavyweight, like sloppy fight, but one where Thomas Petersen walks away with the victory.
God, I just feel dirty rostering low level UFC heavyweights.
Yeah. I ain't gonna worry about it because yes, there is a high chance that heavyweight MMA fights finish inside the distance, but then there's the other side of the coin when you have these guys just hugging each other, leaning on each other, and that's kind of what a sloppy, just like 15-minute gas fest. That's kind of what I'm expecting here. But in that type of environment, I'm going to be back in Petersen.
I think if you're rostering a matchup, you're looking at playing it from an ownership aspect. That to me would be the reason to play it. In terms of DraftKings, I mean, look, I wouldn't really touch this fight on the betting lines. I mean, just because, I think it probably was 15 minutes.
Yep.
But I just, especially the -260 line on Thomas Petersen, really don't want to take that into a guy that I don't trust. Is about the best way to put it. Then our opening matchup, night female matchup, we got Juliana Miller taking on Ivana Petrovic. Petrovic is a -245 betting favorite. Miller +200. She's 7,400 DK. Petrovic is 8,800. Juliana Miller has lost back-to-back fights after she won on TUF the 30. First fight since August 12th, 2023. Petrovic 1-2 in the UFC. Both of her losses have come via decision. Her lone UFC win came via a third-round submission. She's coming off a split decision loss back in November against Jamie Lynn Horth, and she will have a 4-inch reach advantage, Pete.
Jesus Christ. This fight, man, this is a low level, huh? I mean, my God. I mean, how the hell did Miller win the Ultimate Fighter? I mean, it really blows my mind. I mean, am I the only one?
No.
I mean, because she's not good. Like, at all. I mean, she's aggressive, right? She reminds me of like a Chelsea Chandler. Like, had aggressive moments. Very green in her career. Is a bully. But the moment she faces adversity or the moment she gets hit, she crumbles. And this girl has just, I don't know, Jason. Like, look at, Petrovic is pretty damn solid and pretty underrated in my opinion. She's fought legitimate competition. Her strength of schedule sits at 67% throughout her career, 65% win rate a part of her wins. So people she's beaten have won 65% of their fights. So that's pretty damn good. Miller, on the other hand, her strength of schedule sits at 57%, so 10% difference. But within her wins, her opponents have won only 40% of the time. Juliana Miller's fought low-level competition. Her best win was the Brogan Walker performance. That's her best win. Outside of that, there's nothing. I mean, we can't count the Ultimate Fighter, but we can count the finale. But, like, Juliana Miller, I don't know what is going on in this situation. I mean, like, tricky jiu-jitsu, horrible, awkward stand-up, mean ground and pound. I'll give her that. But, like, my God, this fight is crazy. Petrovic's volume, though, is super low on the feet. 2 strikes landed per minute, attempting only 5.12, whereas Miller's landing 3.31 and attempting 7.35. That's super, super tricky because Miller is going to be, she's just awkward to deal with. But this is where I think Petrovic can go out there, and despite Miller's sneaky jiu-jitsu, I think that Petrovic can land takedowns. She just has to be careful. She has to be careful about the armbar from guard. Mm-hmm. She has to be careful of just getting lazy, because the defense of Juliana Miller in striking defense sits at 32%, and her takedown defense sits at 0%, Jason. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but she's willing to accept position because she's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I say it all the time. I mean, I sound like a broken record. Jiu-jitsu players have poor wrestling, and the jiu-jitsu players that incorporate and train wrestling dominate the sport. Nicky Rod, Gordon Ryan, Gary Tonin. There's so many dominant guys when they have really rounded out their game with the wrestling. I mean, Veronica Hardy took Juliana Miller down 4 of 4 times and had almost 8 minutes of control time. Veronica Hardy. So in this matchup, I'm projecting that Petrovic will be attempting 5+ takedowns, and I think that she can get however many she wants here. She'll have 5 inches in the height plus reach department. Juliana Miller is 2 years younger, been away from the cage for a little bit, could come back with that unknown X factor and look career best. But man, she has not been testing herself inside the UFC or inside the cage at all, because within her win, she's only beaten people with 40% win rate, which is absolutely awful. So I think that Petrovic is a pretty sneaky play here. I think Petrovic is very talented, and I think that she's pretty damn underrated here. So give me Petrovic to put together a solid performance. I mean, against Jamie Lynn Horst, she scored 52.4 in a loss, had 2 takedowns, had almost 8 minutes of control time. Against Liang Na, had 3 takedowns, 5.5 minutes of control time. Against Carolina, who's just massive for the division, had 2 takedowns, 4 minutes of control time, scored 42.3. I mean, I think that Petrovic can just blanket this girl and prove that she's not supposed to be in the UFC. So give me Ivana Petrovic to put together a solid decision.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about from a DraftKings perspective, give me an 8,800 Ivana Petrovic more than an 8,900 Thomas Petersen.
Totally agree. Totally agree, Jason.
That to me is just where I would want to go there, and just really never been really big on Juliana Miller. In the UFC, let's get into our straight-up fight picks here. Main event, I'll go with the favorite, Cory Sandhagen.
Cory Sandhagen, buddy.
Co-main event, I'll go with Nickal.
Nickal for me.
I would then go with my first underdog, Daniel Rodriguez.
Daniel Rodriguez for me, my first underdog.
I'll take Montel Jackson.
I'm taking Daniel Marcos as my second underdog.
Give me Serhiy Sidey.
Okay. My third underdog is going to be Smotherman.
All right, I'll go Mason Jones.
Mason Jones.
Miesha Tate.
Miesha Tate.
I'll go with Azamat. Bekoev.
Yep, Bekoev for me as well.
I would go Gillian Robertson.
Gillian Robertson.
I've been going really back and forth on this one. I'm gonna take the underdog shot here in Quang Lee.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Quang Lee as well. Quang Lee, I'm going to go... That's my fourth underdog. So yeah, I'm with it.
Give me Thomas Petersen.
Thomas Petersen.
And then I will go with Petrovic.
Petrovic for me as well.
Get some questions that came in here. First up, value plays underneath 8K and a core 3 on DraftKings. Value plays underneath 8K. I would imagine you're going to mention Daniel Marcos there at 7,500.
I just don't love that fight though, from like DFS perspective. You know,
yeah, I mean,
I could see that being a little low volume.
I would mention about Lee against Balanos.
Yep.
I would mention Rodriguez if she can keep the fight on the feet against Robertson. Santos, I think, is another interesting one if she can keep the fight on the feet against Miesha Tate. I think those are some underneath 8K that do have some value. In terms of a core 3 for me, I mean, I hate to say this, man, and I don't think you've ever hear me say this.
You gonna say Miesha Tate?
I'm gonna say Petrovic and Tate to start off, just because of the takedowns.
Yeah, dude, I'm with you.
I mean,
I'm with you.
And rarely do I think when I talk about a core 3 that I'm starting off with 2 female fighters, but because of the upside of the takedowns, that to me it would stick there, and to throw in a third one, I'm really thinking Daniel Rodriguez.
I like that as well. I mean, I'm value hunting this week as well, and I like those three fighters you mentioned. I also, for my third, don't hate doing a spend up, since we kind of, we paid 8,800 for Petrovic, 8,300 for Miesha Tate. I don't mind getting to the main event and taking Cory Sandhagen and then figuring out the rest of my lineup. Just trying to accumulate as many points as possible.
Next up, we got some live dogs. I mean, I think we kind of mentioned some there. I mean, Daniel Rodriguez, I mean, I'd honestly be tempted just to, if you like him right now, just play him at plus 100. I don't know if you're going to get a better number than that. Maybe you do as the week goes on. But, you kind of mentioned some of the, Santos, Rodriguez. God, I would take a sprinkle on Jeremy Stephens. I don't know why. Something just tells me to put a sprinkle on him.
Well, I mean, fighters fighting in their hometown, right? A little bit different. But it didn't work out for Anthony Smith last week. I mean, look at Gillian. Looked like he hit him with an axe. I mean, granted, a lot of those shots were to the back of the head, but that was about 20 strikes after all the landed ones. I mean, Smith looked terrible in that bout.
Those elbows.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, the guy's legit.
I mean, and the one thing I'll say is, like, I am a firm believer. I never believe the R word in MMA. But you listen to Anthony Smith, it's almost like someone in his media circle has just said, man, like, you can't compete with these young guys anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even close when he gets hit with shots. I mean, he's been crumbling for a while now. I mean, it was a perfect send-off, right? Back where, his retirement fight, it was fine. It was good, but it did not go how he wished it did at all. I mean, he got destroyed. But, yeah, I mean.
It felt bad watching it. And Herzog gave him every opportunity to stay in the fight.
And I think that's why, yeah.
And it just, there became that point of where you're in your head, you're just saying, stop it. It made me think of Darren Elkins from a couple weeks ago. I was just like, man, just stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah. I mean, these older fighters that are weathered, it's just hard for them to compete with the young guys that are fresh, It was kind of sad, to be honest. And it was such a weird send-off because they didn't do him any favors by fighting him at all. It was not like, oh yeah, get a win and leave. Like it wasn't a take a Paul Craig, a Paul Craig fight, and then retire.
Classic UFC matchmaking, brother. Classic UFC matchmaking. Yeah. We gotta build on the next stars there. Highest scoring underdogs in a decision loss.
It's a great question.
That's to me is where I start sitting there and going, okay, I start looking at takedowns. You know, man, I mean, Tate kind of sticks if she doesn't get the win there. I mean, there's just not a lot of. I mean,
Underdogs, though? Is that what he said?
yeah, he won underdogs. I mean,
I'll tell you one that's interesting just because of his wrestling skill set and how I think it can be very competitive. Even though Bekoev looked fantastic in his debut, Loder's really good. And if you go back and you watch the tape of Bekoev losing, you can see where there's a path for Loder to have success. Do I think it happens? No. But I definitely think that his path is to try to wrestle and make Bekoev gas. But to me, who in a loss will do well? I'm going to say it's got to be Quang Lee for me. It has to be Quang Lee.
will main event stack work in cash? I don't love that thought process.
I don't love it either. And I looked into that. And the reason I don't love it is because we've seen Figueiredo go 5. And when he's gone 5 and lost, most recently was against Peter Yan. He only scored 36.6. And that's where he did land 2 takedowns. So I'm projecting him to get almost 3 takedowns at 6,800. Does 36 do enough? No. It could allow you to spend up elsewhere and get a ton. But you need the losing fighter to get 50. And I don't see that really happening this week.
Next up, best leverage play. Figueiredo could be interesting based on where we see ownership comes in at.
Yeah.
Petersen may, just because I think no one's going to get to that matchup. I think that could be another interesting, and maybe if you think Smotherman or Sidey can go out there and get a stoppage victory, I think that could be another good leverage spot.
Yeah, I like Smotherman a lot. The one leverage spot I will say is maybe people don't like Mason Jones at 9,500.
Okay.
Like it's a spend up. It's a lot of salary, and it's one where he's only had one performance where it was 126.8, and he's lost twice in the UFC. One to Mike Davis in his debut, and then one to Ludovic Klein. It's his first fight back in the UFC against a UFC veteran, and like if he doesn't land crazy amount of takedowns, this is one where he could lose because of Jeremy Stephens' skills. But I think that there's tremendous upside in that unknown of the wrestling. He has taken down Onama 8 times. So for me, the leverage spot would be a spend up of Mason Jones.
Next up, best takedown upside. I think we've kind of really gone over that. I think DeRitter or Bo Nickal. I mean, you could look at both those guys there. Montel Jackson, Mason Jones, Miesha Tate, Ryan Loder, Julian Robertson. Petrovic. I mean, there's definitely some multiple fighters on this card. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of them. I mean,
ranking the 9K options. So at 9K, we got Cory Sandhagen at 9,400, Bo Nickal 9,100, Mason Jones 9,500, Bekoev 9,300, Gillian 9,200. I would probably put Sandhagen number 1 just because of the 25-minute nature to work with in that matchup.
I agree with that.
Oh,
I'm going Bo Nickal 2.
Okay. I kind of feel like after Sandhagen, you could give me any order and I'd be good with it.
And I think it's just Mason Jones 3. And then I think it's... Then I think it might be Bekoev. And then it's Robertson. But, I mean, it's like those first 3 for me, Sandhagen, Nickal, Jones. I like those a lot in comparison to the others.
Best top plays. I'm looking at all these fighters that have the takedown upside in this one. I think you got those Sandhagen. In terms of that one, we mentioned about live dogs. Top inside the distance fighters. I think you got to look at Rodriguez or Ponzinibbio in either one of those. I think a stoppage, good chance it happens that way. It could be a 15-minute stand-up matchup. Bekoev, I think, would be another one I'd throw in there as a top inside distance fighter. Robertson, if she can get the fight to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, top inside the distance fighter. I think it's going to be a long night, Jason. Like I could see like some exciting fights, but I mean, I would love to know what the number's at because if it's at like 5.5, I think I'd take less.
His number is 6.5.
Less.
Yeah. Best decision odds. I think you look at the two female matchups, Petersen Mays, Smotherman Sidey, Nickal Ritter.
Right? Dude, it's a long night.
Yeah. Top optimal plays, I think you got to be looking at the people that we've kind of labeled as those takedown artists in terms of that. Top pump plays, I'd put in Marina Rodriguez as a top pump play just because of if she can stop the takedowns and keep the fire on the feet. Jason and Pete special. This is one of the weeks I do like in the opening fight, Petrovic. And then you've mentioned about how you like Daniel Rodriguez in terms of that. Top leverage plays in the high 8Ks. It's kind of a new one here from Sam. I kind of like this question, Sam. God, I hate to say it. It's probably Thomas Petersen. Just because I don't think he's going to be owned.
Play in the high 8 range?
Yeah.
It's definitely Thomas Petersen. I mean, he's got a takedown path, and everybody, including myself, is expecting a gas fest against the cage. Lots of reversals, lots of cage push, lots of takedown attempts, dirty boxing. But like we've seen Dontel Mays quit time and time again inside the cage when the going gets tough. And I think Petersen can put him in some spots with the mat returns, with the pressure, with the ground and pound, making him a little indecisive, a little uncomfortable. Not to mention his submission defense is not good. And if Petersen has been rounding out his game with submission skills, then he could be looking and may acquire a submission win. But I think the ground and pound is something that is something for Petersen to utilize here because I would agree. That's a good call, Jason. He's in that spot where it's sneaky.
Yeah. Final question here from Sam here, and we'll wrap the show up. Top captains and MVPs. Look, I think Cory Sandhagen is going to be highly owned as a captain. And typically in captain contests, I do like to stay away from those. I'd give you 3 that would stick out to me.
Okay.
Daniel Rodriguez, volume, potentially a knockdown. Montel Jackson, if he gets the takedowns. Okay. And Mason Jones, same thing, if he could get the takedowns.
I don't hate him at all. I'm on the other side in the Montel Jackson fight, but I can see it. I mean, I would love to see where Miesha Tate is. For me personally, I think Miesha Tate would be in an interesting spot instead of Montel Jackson for me personally. But I've had very minimal success in that captain contest. That's more of your thing, but maybe this week I'll try my luck again.
Dude, the captain contest to me, you have to nail the captain. I mean, that's where and it's about finding that one underdog that's going to kind of come in there for you. It's a very challenging thing to do in terms of that. But of course, if you do have any questions in terms of later on this week, you can certainly hit us up in our Discord channel. It's totally free to join, or right here in the YouTube chat as well. We'll definitely answer those questions. Of course, we'll have a DraftKings contest later on this week. Of course, we'll have a link to Pete's Patreon if you want to get access to his algorithm and what it's spitting out for him. Of course, had a lot of great success with that. Also, if you want to take advantage of the offers Stochastic has for their tools as well, be sure to hit that up in the show link. Pete, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thank you guys for the continuous support. Happy to have you guys a part of the Fight HQ community. on YouTube, if you could always hit that like button and get us over 100 likes, if you could help spread the word to our, of our channel to your friends, and help us reach our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. As Jason mentioned, check out the description below for all the offers from me and Stochastic, and catch it in Discord, which is free to join below, throughout the week, talking about changes to the card, additions to the card, how the weigh-ins look, all this and that. But happy to get these shows out here early for you guys. It helps us out. It helps everybody out with the process of DFS lineup construction. And again, thank you guys so much, and happy to be here doing it with you guys.
And, of course, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Fight HQ. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Of course, we'll be back next Monday. We got UFC 315 next week, the 2 title fights. Of course, the welterweight title on the line in the main event. Belal Muhammad defending his title against Jack Della Maddalena. So that's going to do it for this episode of Fight HQ.